Here it is, the USS Flag aircraft carrier. Imagine being on the deck of this aircraft carrier.
The USS Flag is fantastic! It's so big! Lowering back! Little Leslie! Get ready to launch aircraft! Where's the Admiral? Not here! G.I. Joe! Fire! Restart Cobra! Joe!
USS Flag aircraft carrier comes with what you see here. Other figures and equipment sold separately.
Joe!
When I was a kid, there was no internet, no cell phones, no cable, and only 4 channels on television. Back then, if you wanted entertainment, you hung out with your friends, rode your bikes, and used your imagination. One of the best ways to use your imagination was with toys. With the invention of the internet, cell phones, and iPads, children just don't leave their homes anymore to play, and certainly don't use their imaginations as they scroll mindlessly through shorts and videos that tell them stories rather than the children making up their own. For this reason, physical toys just aren't a very big thing anymore with children, and it's a shame. Some of the best times I had as a child was playing with these toys and physical board games and using my imagination. Here are a few of the toys I played with as a child.
Super elastic bubble plastic.
Squeeze it out and blow it up.
Super elastic bubble plastic.
Amazing plastic bubbles from a tube.
Super elastic bubble.
Super elastic bubble plastic. I vividly remember this toy as a kid. It was introduced in 1970 and came with a small tube and a thin type of straw. You would squeeze out some of the material from the tube, which had a chewing gum-like consistency, and then put a small amount on the end of the straw and blow bubbles. The plasticky bubbles could then be pinched off and then played with. It had a unique smell that I can't quite explain. The material in the tube was made from polyvinyl acetate dissolved in acetone. Needless to say, this could be toxic and dangerous if swallowed. Super elastic bubble plastic was eventually taken off shelves because of the fumes and possible ingestion by young children. Despite this, it was a super fun toy to use your imagination with. Board games were a big part of childhood in the 70s and early 80s. We've all heard of Monopoly, Clue, Sorry, Life, etc. But there was a board game I had as a child that isn't very common, but I found very fun because it was based on history and mythology. The Trojan War, Game of Gods and Heroes board game came out in 1981 and was based on the 11-year siege of Troy by the Greeks, as told in the famous book The Iliad. It came with a game board with Troy on one side and the Greeks on the other, several game pieces representing army units and specific Greek and Trojan heroes like Paris and Achilles, dice, event cards, and a rulebook. There were several scenarios that you could play out, including one where you have to roll to have Paris shoot Achilles in the heel to kill him because he's practically invulnerable beforehand. The main objective, however, was to breach the Trojan walls if you're playing as the Greeks, or defend the city until the time limit of moves if you're the Trojans. I really enjoyed this game, but it wasn't really common at the time. Games like this that combine strategy and competition with historical and mythological stories are something that need to make a comeback, as you can not only enjoy yourselves, but develop your critical thinking skills and learn something at the same time. Back in the 70s, there just wasn't as much emphasis on safety as there is today. One of the favorite things for young children, especially boys, to play with were the Skillcraft chemistry sets. There were a variety of different kinds. They would usually come with different kinds of chemicals, from calcium chloride and ferrous sulfate to sodium carbonate and cobalt chloride. It would usually also come with a booklet or sheet explaining different chemical mixtures and what they would do. Some of them could be a little dangerous. Hazards aside, it was a great way for young children to become excited about science, and I wish they would have something like this today for children. It would be worth a few corroded tabletops or noxious fumes to help mold a new generation of scientists. Action figures are still around, but they're just not as big of a thing as they used to be. With children watching programs on iPads and phones, they just aren't encouraged enough to use their imaginations. When I was a kid, action figures like He-Man, Transformers, and G.I. Joe were a huge deal, and you always saved your allowance to buy one. This led to hours and hours of making up your own stories and scenarios with those action figures. It was a precursor, in a way, to content creation, whether it's filmmaking, drawing comics, or making YouTube videos like I am right now. Flexing your imaginative and creative muscles back then helped train children to make up the imaginative stories or comics, movies, and television and music that we got later on when they grew up. I'll say it again, there's not enough emphasis on creativity and imagination today, and as we move into the dicey world of AI, it can only get worse, as a computer can never match the colorful, imaginative stories that can be created by the human brain. Now, I know I've dogged on children not going outside and using their imaginations a lot in this video, so it might be surprising that I'm including the first game system I ever had, the Atari 2600. In my defense, though, the limitations of the old game systems were so bad that you really did have to sort of use your imagination to pretend that the mess of grainy pixels in your screen really represented what they were advertising. Beyond this, though, I also had an Atari 400, which could also play games, but the highlight of that system was being able to program. I taught myself to program in basic language code back then when I was a child, and it gave me a jump start in computers. I actually started to go to college for computer science, but had to drop due to financial situations. But being able to program at a young age helped me in school, and also helps to train you in logical and critical thinking skills that can aid every aspect of your life no matter what field you go in. So those were some of the toys that I played with as a child. There's no doubt that modern gaming is fun, and that sitting around watching streaming services and videos on YouTube are also enjoyable. But I think it's important if you're a parent, or even for yourself, to make your children put down the controller, mouse, or remote, and go outside to interact with the real world. We should bring back things like board games, toys, and educational sets like Skillcraft to mold our children's minds and our own to be creative and imaginative. After all, without that, we wouldn't even have the modern entertainment or conveniences we have now, and if we don't start going back to our imaginative and creative roots, we won't have anything new tomorrow.